Hey kids, I'm Ali from Agrabah, and once upon a time there were three girl pigs who built three houses. The first girl had all the money in the world and built her house with all luxurious items alone. The second girl wanted her house beautiful and made her house filled with artwork and color. The third girl wanted safety and security and built the most secure possible place to live, away from danger. One day, a wolf genie came along and hated the three houses of the little girl pig, so he huffed and puffed and blew the first house down of luxury. Secondly, he went to the next girl pig's house of beauty and blew the house down. Third and final, he went to the third pig girl's house and huffed and puffed and couldn't blow a secure house down. The end.
Jesse, have I ever told you about the story of the three little pigs? The one little pig based his product around straw, but it fell through because it was weak. The second pig built his product around sticks, but it also fell through because he was also weak. Last pig saw all this, built his product around brick, and now he's the Heisenberg of the three little pigs.
Once upon a time, there were three pigs, each of their own trade. The first pig's name was Gerald, the gullible pig of the few. The second pig's name was Joe. He was a goofy pig that likes to fool around. Then the last pig name was Frank. He was the most serious pig out of the three. He liked to have everything in order. All the three pigs had pursued their life of fame and fortune. One day, the three pigs had a task to do: find a wonderful mansion to live in. This was because their parents had decided that they had been living with them far too long. The pigs loved their parents and wanted to make them proud and see who could build the best house to prove that they could live on their own.
This was a fight of who will be their parents' favorite pig. The first pig, Gerald, had decided to live the cheapest he could, so he decided he would live in a straw hut down by the river. He thought this was a good idea, but he did not take into consideration the weather. If there was a rainstorm, how would his house survive? The second pig, Joe, decided to copy the first pig, but thought he was smarter and decided to make it out of stick. The third pig was laughing at their stick and straw houses, and he thought he was going to make a better house out of brick. After everyone's house was finished, they each lived in their house perfectly for a week. That very night, there was a strange wind in the air. The first two pigs were unaware that there was a storm a-brewin', where all of a sudden lightning shot out of the sky and blew both of the houses up. Gerald and Joe were terrified, but Frank was aware. After the lightning assailed, Frank saw all of this. He felt bad and decided that he would invite Gerald and Joe to live with him. They realized they would live together and their parents would be proud of them for living on their own, safe together.
I was once told of a game so legendary it would blow your minds. 3 teams were in the final circle at Tilted Towers. One team built their base out of wood, the other out of brick, and the third out of steel. Each team sat on their own respective high grounds overlooking Tilted. When the circle started to close in, both the brick base and the steel base shot rocket upon rocket at the wooden base, blowing it to bits and leaving the team with no cover. This prompted the team in the now destroyed wood base to push the brick team's base. The battle that commenced destroyed the sturdy but slightly fragile brick base. Both teams left each other on low health with no heals, as both teams decided to attack the steel base at the time due to its advantage. But alas, the strong steel tower that was crafted by the third team stood tall and never fell as the other teams pushed the team in the steel base, mowed them down with their legendary scars, leaving them the easiest victory royale of their lives.
The 3 little pigs were all construction workers. The oldest one made his house out of brick, and he's been in the industry for 5 years. The middle one had his house made out of sticks, and he's been in the industry for 2 years. The youngest made his house out of straw and has been in the industry for 5 months. One day, a storm blew by and destroyed the straw and the stick house. The brothers saw that their brother's brick house was still intact, so they built their house out of brick as well. One day, another storm blew by and none of their houses were destroyed. The end.
When I was a wee little wolf, there was 3 little pigs: Jeff, John, and Demetrius. The 3 little pigs were great friends with each other and knew that being neighbors were a must in the little fantasies. They started building their houses all on my land, never asking me if they could. Jeff built his own out of straw, John built his out of driftwood, and Demetrius built his out of brick. I seen Jeff's forest, his being the closest to my house, of course. I therefore walked over and told him to get off my property. Jeff, of course, however, refused, so I decided to remove him the old-fashioned way, by blowing his house down. So, that's what I did. I then made my way towards John's house, the one made out of driftwood, and also told him to get off my land. John, just like his brother, also refused. This made me also had to blow his house down in order to get my land back. I then had the last house left, Demetrius's. Given that he built his out of brick, I knew it would be hard to be blown to smithereens, but I had to try anyways. So I again told him to get off my land. I would be left with no choice but to blow his house down. Demetrius, just like his brothers, also refused. This left me no choice but to try to blow his house down. I blew and I blew as hard as I could, but no matter how hard I blew, the house did not budge. Therefore, I came here to plead to you to get them off my land. Are you happy with that?
After the funeral, all that was left was a dog. There's 3 siblings who were fighting over the dog because they wanted the best home for the dog. The youngest one lived in the straw, and he said that his house was airy and will keep the dog cool. Porky, the middle pig, who lived in the stick house, wanted the dog because his house was made of sticks and the dog will have plenty of toys to play with. Chop, the oldest, he keeps the dog because he's the oldest and the most stable house because he lives in the brick, and he thinks that he will have... In the end, the pigs read the will and the parents wanted the dog to go to Chop, the oldest, because the brick house would be the safest for the dog. That's done! Go!
Okay. Okay, I'm ready.
It's recording.
Oh. Okay. Once upon a time, there were 3 young little pigs who were so scared to go off on their own. Those poor things out in the big world. One of the brothers decided that he wanted to build a shelter as fast as he could. He was the youngest and knew that the time had come when no one was there to protect it. He searched to find the fastest material he could, but all he found was straw. He thought to himself that since birds live in straw nests, it couldn't be that hard to build or take that much time. The second brother was a little bit braver than the first. He took a little bit more time to search for items and he could use to build his house. He found sticks from a nearby forest, so he got to work. The third brother was the eldest, and he was also the smartest. He went all the way to Home Depot to buy bricks. One stormy day, the youngest pig heard a knock at the door. He looked out the window and saw a wolf. Shivering under a blanket, he felt the strong winds rock the straw house back and forth until there was nothing left of it. The youngest pig ran all the way to his brother's stick house. He told his brother what had happened, but he didn't realize that the wolf had followed. The stick house started rocking until there was nothing left of it. Finally, they both ran to their oldest brother's brick house. They told their brother what had happened and ran to the window to see if the wolf had followed. Almost as the wolf had approached the door, a lightning bolt struck down and electrocuted the wolf. The end.
Once upon a time, there were 3 little pigs. The first pig would never put in the work to do anything. He dropped out of school, and he did not feel like building a house, so he found a pile of straw and lived in it. The second pig would work, but would always do the bare minimum. He graduated just barely with all D's. He didn't want to get the things to make a good house, so he just made his house out of sticks. The third pig always did his best on everything and worked hard. He graduated with all A's. It took him weeks to make his perfect brick house, but he finally finished it. One day, a wolf came to the neighborhood looking for pigs to eat. The first pig hid in his pile of straw, but the wolf just blew it away just 'cause it's a pile of straw. The second pig hid in a stick house, but the wolf just blew it away 'cause the pig didn't take the time to make it windproof. The third pig hid in his brick house. The wolf tried to blow it down, but the pig made sure he took the extra time to make sure his house couldn't be blown away. The wolf gave up ate the two other pigs, and left. The third pig lived happily ever after. The end.
Once upon a time, there were 3 little pigs that were very rich, and each of them got to make their own house. Being stupid little pigs, they decided to make their houses out of inferior materials. One built his house out of straw, one out of sticks, and the other out of grass. A poor lonely wolf came to town, and it was winter, so he was starving. He saw the pigs flexing their wealth all around town. He was starving, so he decided to blow their house down in order to live. So he went out and blew all 3 of the houses down, but spared the pigs out of compassion. He then stole all of their food and was able to survive the rest of the winter, and the pigs then rebuilt their houses.
So I'm assuming you're familiar with the story of the 3 little pigs, right? The story reminds me of you in a way. The 3 pigs are all very similar in many ways, but they each have their differences in this one aspect. They all went about making their houses differently. They were all successful, but they each had to work harder than each other to create a strong and stable house. One day, a big bad wolf came to town and began attempting to blow everyone's houses down. The youngest pig didn't have to work very hard to make his house out of straw. This pig's house was strong and easily made and stood strong against the wolf. The middle pig also hardly put in any work into making his house out of sticks, but yet his house was very strong and sturdy and also held up amazingly against the wolf. Now the pig that reminds me of you is the oldest pig. He put in so much work to make his house out of straw like his youngest brother, just for it to be knocked down. He brushed it off and put even more work into making a house out of sticks like his younger brother, just for it to get blown over with ease. But even after being blown over and knocked down so easily, you get back up for a 3rd time and come back stronger than ever. He put so much time and effort into creating a sturdy brick house. Every little step that this pig took, making his house stronger and better, made himself stronger and better. When he finally finished this brick house, he was so happy to see that it was strong enough to withstand the wind. He was very proud of all the hard work he put into his house, even though he got the same result as younger brothers who hardly put any work into theirs.